Okay, so here we go. This is, I don't know, does my sound need to be up on this to make it better to hear? Does anybody know? It doesn't matter?
The microphone's going to be a microphone.
Okay, I didn't know, so I asked. All right, you learn something new every day. Here's the deal. When you factor, what is it that we find? What do we get from a factoring problem? So let's make sure your answer's right first. Let's go there first. What was your greatest common factor? 4 what?
4x.
4x. Perfect. You guys did that on the quiz, I noticed. We got there. This was the first quiz. All right, now what? Is that thing in parentheses factorable? Can I go farther from here?
Probably.
Look at the flow chart. It's not a difference of squares because it's not 2 terms. It's 3 terms, right? 3 terms. So is it normal or slide, divide, slide?
Slide on the
How do we know?
because there's no a value.
Okay, so the a value is 1. It's not there. Normal. What 2 numbers will we use?
9 and 10.
Hold on. So 9 and negative 10. 9 and negative 10. Excuse me. Does something work for that? Are you with me? -1, -9. So far, so good. So what do I put in the parentheses? We know. Yes. Did you do that? Did you get x squared minus 1, x squared minus 9? Perfect. Are you done here? Difference of squares. What do I get from a difference of squares? X minus 1x. What happens to this first parentheses? What does that become? Difference of squares. How do we do difference of squares? Plus and minus. Plus and minus. X plus 1, x minus 1. What's the answer for this one before I show it to you? Okay. So, let me go back here and to ask that question again. What is the point of factoring? What can I get from factoring a problem, a polynomial in particular? What does this lead me to? And you kind of saw it before I covered it up.
Too many numbers.
Yeah, what are those numbers? What are those numbers? Solutions. I factor to find solutions. These are, in other words, the zeros. Solutions and zeros are the same thing. So if I can factor, so this one's 0, this one's 1, -1, 3, and -3. These are the solutions. This is where the graph crosses the x-axis. How many solutions should I have? Remember how we talked about that? The degree represents the total number of solutions you should have. Now, sometimes your solutions aren't real solutions, and we got into that on the homework. That's what we ran into yesterday. When I was working with this group, we ended up with imaginary roots, which was today's lesson. But you will always have this number of solutions. Here they are. So we factor to find what? We do this to find what? What are these?
Answer.
The answers. Okay, keep that in mind. Next factoring one. This is, so we factor this one too. This is the next question. This was our B example. Go through the flow chart. Is there a greatest common factor for all 4 terms? No. So it is a 4-termed polynomial. So check to see if grouping will work. Do you remember grouping? Was this one too long ago to remember? What do I do to the I don't know if I'm going to make it through class today. What do you do with the first 2 terms? What do we take out? What do we take out here? X squared. Okay, so I'm going to take out an x squared from both of those. What's left over? Okay, you with me there? I take out an x squared from both. What do I take out from the next set? Good. But if this is a minus sign, take out a -16. So I end up with x and 3. And it's negative, it's minus 3 because I divided it by a negative 16. Grouping will work, and it only works when these parentheses are the same. So are they the same? So I pull those out front. And what do I put next to it? Good. So x squared minus 16 will come and join it here. Okay. Am I done? I have two binomials. Whenever you have two binomials, always check, when you have a binomial in general, check for a difference of squares. Do I have a difference of squares? What does x squared minus 16 become? Good. X minus 4x plus 4. Okay, so the final answer is right here. X minus 3 times x minus 4 times x plus 4. What are the solutions? What are the zeros?
3, 4,
Okay. How many solutions should I have had? 3. Factoring is a really nice, fast way to get to the solutions. Sometimes it looks like this. So here's the next question that is on the quiz that was given last week. So this is a big one. Also on the test, obviously, which is why we're doing it, and it's the last one I'm doing with you on this sheet today. Go ahead and write, that's tomorrow. Go ahead and write this. It's kind of a mess. Given a polynomial and a factor completely. So while you write, let me explain that this is what we did yesterday. This is what led into what we did yesterday. So given a polynomial, which we have that first original long polynomial, and a factor, which is x minus 6, factor completely. Okay. So here's the deal. You're just factoring. It's a continued factoring process. You're going to follow along with what we have up here. We're factoring completely. What's the purpose of factoring? To find what? Find the answers. Find the zeros. Yes, you factor to find the zeros. Okay, so first of all, greatest common factor. Is there one amongst these 4 terms? No. Second of all, is this a 2, 3, or 4-termed polynomial? 4. Can I solve by grouping? Try it. Let's try it really fast. You need to see what happens when you can't solve it. You don't have to write this down, just watch. What's the GCF here? X squared. So if I take it out, I end up with that, right? What's the greatest common factor here? Nothing, right? Do my parentheses match? No. Is grouping an option? No. Grouping is not an option. So if you run across a factoring problem that doesn't work for anything up here so far, that is when you divide and factor. You divide and factor. Okay? Divide. Polynomials. We know how to divide polynomials by long division and by synthetic division. What's your preference? Okay, let's do that then. Get your synthetic division set up. What number do we divide by? Positive or negative?
Positive.
Well done. Start it. Go. Synthetic division. So we divide and factor. So everybody do synthetic division. Set it up. So we put our positive 6 out front. Drop in the 1, the negative 10, the 19, the 30. Do I need any zeros? I should have asked that before I put those in. Good. No zeros needed. What should my remainder be? Should be a remainder of 0. Here, I can show it to you. It looks like this. Drop 1, multiply. Oh, it's negative. What?
31.
Oh. That's the one thing you're focused on? Thanks. Thanks for your focus.
At least it has something to do with this class.
Yeah, that's not going to save you, I don't think. Yeah. Good. Yep. All right, so here we are. How do you take this to a polynomial? What do we do to that? So we have 1, negative 4, negative 5, and 0. How does that become a polynomial? 1x squared. Okay. Minus 4x minus 5. So we factored it, or we divided it. I'm sorry, we divided it. Now can I factor this? Can I factor this through this normal chart now? How many terms does this have? 3. Is this a normal or a slide divide slide? It's a normal because the a value is what? So positive 5 and negative 1, reverse. Because it wants to add to be a negative 4, right? What's my other factor? These two work. What's the other one? Okay, so this is a question off our last quiz. So people, not exactly, but remember the process. This was one of the ones you had to solve. Now, what are the solutions? What are they?
5.
Good. So the whole point of us dividing and factoring is to find the solutions. That's why we're doing what we're doing. Right? That's a huge carryover to what we did yesterday. So now, somebody give me a homework question. I can do 16 or 18 because that shows what we need to do today, or I can pick a different one. I did 18 and realized I hadn't taught you that, so I pushed it off. I crossed it off. I think I asked you to cross off 16 too, didn't I? Okay, so give me another one. What do you want? You're going to turn your homework into me as soon as I'm done with one. So somebody pick one of their questions right now. 14 it is. There you go. Okay, last connection here, and then I'll turn off the video.
What?
They did. They just, no, they didn't get it right. They just attempted it. Okay. So everybody dig out, even if you don't have anything done, you're going to do this with me now.
Someone wants to get another piece of paper?
It's just homework. So wherever you put your homework. What was my page number? 375, thank you. Okay. Okay, so then here's the last carryover, the last thing I want to try to combine. So this is the homework you did yesterday, or attempted, hopefully. The instructions say, find all real zeros of the function. Do you see that? Real zeros. Zeros are answers. So yesterday, we attempted to do the whole factoring problem, but we can't factor, so we had to divide and factor. But here's the huge difference between what we just did, and this question. Somebody see if they can notice it. What's the difference between this question and the one that's presented to us here? it doesn't give you the original factor. We have to divide and factor. That's the process. The process hasn't changed. The piece that changes is I don't know what to divide by now. That's when we added in all that extra stuff from yesterday. So we are still dividing, still factoring. It's just now we don't have this given information anymore. We have to come up with that given information. And that's where we are today. Like that's what